to ask you about one of the enduring mysteries of this pandemic, and it's a question that comes from one of our listeners. And I know you mentioned it in the book. It comes from Shelley Cornell, her name is, and Shelley writes, "What do you believe is the origin story of COVID-19?" Again, you write about it, but you had book
Right, I
deadlines.
do. I do, with the modest tentativeness, I hope, of someone who is not an epidemiologist, let alone a virologist. I'm just simply, I hope, a kind of intelligent and eager reader of the scientific literature.
Mm.
And so, this comes with all those caveats and warnings, really. But my sense is that, well, first of all, I should say, and again, I know if my wife is here, she'd agree, lab leaks absolutely can happen and do happen. And I think those who take the opposite view from COVID-19 being a lab leak at the Wuhan Institute of Virology agree no one's against extreme concern for the security, particularly when you're working with potentially dangerous pathogens. However, that being said, I think the enormous weight of evidence really is for natural transmission. And I don't want to go into detail in which I'm sure I'll embarrass myself for the mistake, but there is now an enormous amount of evidence actually of infected animals at the wholesale seafood market in Wuhan. Unfortunately for us, the Chinese killed, unfortunately for the search for nail down on origin, the Chinese killed all the animals there. So we're left with kind of swabs which have indications of infected animals. And yes, it is entirely possible that there was an infected human working in the lab at WIV, although they were not working on viruses pathogenically related to what became COVID-19. But an infected human could conceivably have infected animals, but it's very, very unlikely. And all the other very dangerous infected diseases of late, Ebola, AIDS, H1N1, all of those have come through natural transmission. So it would be very, very odd if this were not the case now, I think. But again, Francis, as you know, it's politically convenient, if you believe this is, to quote the former president, the China virus, it's very convenient to want to find some sort of conspiratorial theory behind it, whether it's a conspiracy of big pharmaceutical firms, excessive friends of China, and so on, which is, again, sort of just clouds the search for truth.